Today, we're going to be looking back at this roster and see where the top players are now. Obviously, we have to start off with Joe Burrow, and he is the entire reason why this season happened. And possibly the greatest season of any college athlete of all time, Joe Burrow would go on to throw for 5,671 yards, 60 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions en route to the easiest Heisman of all time. After this insane season, Joe Burrow was undisputedly the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, and that's just what happened. He was taken #1 overall by the Bengals in 2020. In his rookie year, he was doing pretty good, with a chance that he could have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, but in Week 11, he tore his ACL, cutting his season short. But when he came back in 2021, that was when he broke out in the NFL. He put up over 4,000 passing yards, 34 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, won Comeback Player of the Year, and led the Bengals to the Super Bowl for the first time in 33 seasons, all in his second season. That next season, his stats were slightly better as he had an MVP caliber season, and he led the Bengals to the AFC Championship, but sadly they lost against the Chiefs on a game-winning field goal. 2023 saw high expectations for the Bengals, however, it's been very, very sad. They've gone 5-5 so far through 10 games, and to make all things worse, Joe Burrow has been officially declared out for the season. Overall, Joe Burrow has been amazing so far in his NFL career. He just needs to stay healthy. Usually, I'll talk about the running back right after, but right now, I'm going to talk about Jamar Chase. Chase didn't do that much as a freshman, but then next year as a sophomore, he exploded onto the scene just like Burrow. He became Burrow's #1 guy, and he could have declared for the NFL draft that year, and he would have been taken pretty high, but he decided to stay one more year, and for some reason, he opted out, which was very strange. Despite missing a full year in college, Jamar Chase was still drafted #5 overall by the Cincinnati Bengals, which reunited him with Joe Burrow. At the time, this pick was held with very high criticism because the Bengals desperately needed lineman help, but they went with the receiver route, even though Penei Sewell from Oregon, a lineman, was still on the board, but they went with Jamar Chase, and so far it's worked out very well. Chase immediately made an impact once he got into the NFL with over 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year and was a big part on why the Bengals went to the Super Bowl that year. Even though he missed 5 games the next season, he still went over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, and this season he's been kind of starting slow, but he's been picking up and has proved himself yet again to be one of the league's best receivers. Next up is the starting running back of that team, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As a freshman in 2017, he didn't see the ball that much. In 2018, his reps improved and so did his play, and in 2019, that's when he went berserk, over 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns. This impressive season got him selected 32nd overall in the first round by the defending Super Bowl champs Kansas City Chiefs over the likes of DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor, and looking back, I'm sure that Chiefs would have chosen one of those two. I say this because so far in his career, he's been very disappointing, and it looks like it's not going to pick back up. He had pretty good expectations as a rookie, and he wasn't bad his rookie season, and it looked like it could be the start of a promising career, but his reps have only decreased since, and so has his play. Next up is someone we all know, and that's Justin Jefferson. Just like pretty much everyone else in this video, he didn't play much as a freshman, and his sophomore year in 2018, he saw his reps improve and his play improve, and then 2019 as a junior, he absolutely exploded onto the scene. Jefferson decided to declare for the NFL draft that year and was selected 22nd overall by the Vikings. Just like his LSU teammate Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson entered the league and made an immediate impact. Despite going for over 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns in his rookie season, he didn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year that season, but that next season, he'd prove himself to be one of the best receivers in the league. That next season, he was somehow even better as he went over 1,800 yards and 8 touchdowns and won Offensive Player of the Year and had one of the best starts to a career by a receiver of all time. So far this season, he's been banged up. He's only played 5 games, but in those 5 games he's played, he's been phenomenal. So we're just waiting for him to return. Next up is the tight end Thaddeus Moss, and he's best remembered as Randy Moss's son. I mean, he still is Randy Moss's son. He's like he didn't. You know what I mean. I could have fit the whole graphic on the screen, but basically he played at In 2016 as a freshman, he was at NC State, but didn't see much playing time there, so he transferred to LSU in 2017. Before the rules changed, he had to sit out the entire 2017 season, but then he missed the entire 2018 season due to a foot injury, and then in 2019, he finally played, and he did pretty decent. He would go undrafted in 2020, but he'd sign with the Redskins just a few days later. However, just a year later, he'd be released. From 2021 to 2022, he was bouncing on and off the Bengals practice squad, but he was finally released for the last time on September 5th, 2022. Since then, no transactions happened with him, and it looks like his playing days are over. Chaisson. In 2017, he was pretty decent. In 2018, in his sophomore year, he only played one game, but 2019, his junior season, he went off. This stellar season got him drafted 20th overall by the Jags in 2020. However, he's been awful. He's been very disappointing. He's only started 11 games, 5 sacks, 68 tackles, and 9 tackles for loss. Next is middle linebacker Patrick Queen, who is arguably the best player on the defensive side of the ball. Pretty much the story of every single player we've covered so far. Freshman year didn't do much, sophomore year improved, and then junior year absolutely went off. Queen was taken with the 28th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft by the Ravens, who were coming off a 14-2 season. Through 4 seasons, he's been pretty solid, and he's one of the better players on a very good Ravens defense, and currently, right now this season, he's top 10 in tackles. He's currently on pace to have his best season yet, and he deserves to be a Pro Bowler this year. Next up is linebacker Jacob Phillips. He was pretty solid throughout his time at LSU. He recorded 87 tackles in his sophomore season in 2018, and then the next year, 2019, he had 113 tackles. He'd be drafted in the 3rd round by the Cleveland Browns, and honestly, he hasn't done really anything in the NFL so far. He started 8 games, 88 tackles, and 3 sacks, and he's currently on the IR. And I almost forgot 5 tackles for loss so far. Next up is the safety Grant Delpit. During his time at LSU, and especially in 2019, he was arguably the best safety in the nation. In his junior season in 2019, he recorded 65 total tackles, 38 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 interceptions. He was drafted in the 2nd round by the Cleveland Browns in 2020, but he had to wait a whole year to play because he was injured on IR. But once he took the field for the first time in 2021, he's been very, very solid, and he's on pace to have one of his best, well, obviously it's his 3rd season, but he's on pace to have one of his best seasons yet, and he should make the Pro Bowl this year. Next is cornerback Stingley Jr, and he immediately made an impact on the team just as a freshman. However, his games played every season after that, which was only 2 seasons, went down a lot. He only played 10 games in those 2 seasons. However, the lack of games played did not matter, as he was selected 3rd overall in the 2022 NFL Draft by the Houston Texans over cornerback from Cincinnati, Sauce Gardner, which I'm sure if they had that pick back, they would change it in a heartbeat, even though Stingley has been pretty decent. In 2 seasons, he's been pretty good when he's played. 2 interceptions, 1 sack, and 58 total tackles in 2 seasons. However, he's only played 13 games in all of which he started, and that's because he's not been healthy. So if he was more healthy, maybe we could see a possible all-pro Pro Bowler player.